Let's start this episode by me apologizing for, the events of the last episode. Yes, I was being a bloody idiot by eating all those gummies without reading the directions. And it didn't matter, I still flipped out. I didn't even finish reading the story. Yeah, I didn't even finish reading it. I was near the end. I was near the end, but I didn't even finish reading it. And I scared the crap out of Meg. She, did the right thing by knocking me out. I don't think I was going to do anything harmful to her, but the web show spied, and how I was coming across was really scary. Really scary, so Meg did the right thing. Meg's anger afterwards was very understandable. I mean, she was calm when she was scolding me when I came to, but, you know, seeing her initial anger after, you know, watching the footage back and the web show showing all that too, her anger was very, very understandable. And it does make me a major hypocrite, you know. I'm being critical of her for the outfit she wears mowing, and then I turn around and eat an entire bag of edibles. Yes, very stupid of me. But yes, yes. So, again, I do apologize for the events of the last episode. Lesson learned. Don't do that again. So, we're doing a double feature for this episode, as you already know because of the title. Hazbin Hotel. It is an interesting series. I've seen the pilot of it. I've seen more of Hell of a Boss than Hazbin Hotel, but it's pretty decent. It's an interesting series. Hazbin Hotel, I think, is on Netflix, and Hell of a Boss is still a YouTube show. Yes, so the first story for this double feature we're going to be reading is called A Promise in the Dead Land. Oh, I'm sorry. A Promise in the Dead of Night. And the author is Pixar Pien Flover. Petrified by her late-night fears, Charlie begs for a promise that Alistair is determined to keep no matter the cost. So this story is rated Fiction T, it's in English, it's Hit Comfort. Alistair, Charlie are the characters. It has 1,600 words, 1 review, 11 faves, and 5 follows. It was published back in April of 2024, which is this year for me anyway. Right, let's get started. I'm scared. Her voice is but a whisper, that Alistair barely registers her words at first. When he does, he feels himself tightening his arms around her, his mind already preparing to shield her from the danger that he's not made aware of. Something's been off about Charlie's behavior, and he hasn't been able to determine the reason. From the moment she stepped in his room, he's known she hasn't been her usual perky mood. It's not unlike her to pay him a visit in the dead of night. Hell, it's practically become routine for them. If he doesn't end up falling asleep with her in her own bed, he can expect to find her hours later in his room, quietly requesting that she stay. And he never refuses. I think it should be he stays. Or that, oh, never mind, that she wants to stay with him. That was my bad. How could he possibly turn down such a request from the radiant, smiling princess of hell? But tonight, that gorgeous smile of hers, that normally greets him when she enters a room, was absent from her face. Her piercing eyes, that could read all the secrets of his soul, were puffy from tears she must have dried before coming to see him. She hasn't uttered a word until now. She simply opened the door and walked over to join him on the sofa he sits on, and crawled her way into his arms. He hasn't questioned her, but he finds it odd that she has been so quiet. Not even a laugh, or even a breath. Has she been holding her breath the whole time? Alistair brings his hand up to the back of her head that lays against his chest, raking his long claws through the soft strands of her golden hair. Of what, dear? He asks, his voice only slightly louder than hers. Now, forgive me, I haven't really seen much of this show. Like I said before, I saw the pilot, but that was years ago. I haven't watched it since, so I don't know how the voices sound. And considering how atrocious my voice acting was in the last episode, I think I'm just going to skip it for this one. She doesn't answer, not with words at least. Instead, she just further nuzzles her head against him, burying her face into the fabric of his coat like she's trying to hide from something. Alistair swears he hears a faint whimper escape her, a sound that not only catches him off guard, but fills him with rage. Several thoughts run through his mind like a herd of deer. What could have happened to her that would send her into such a fragile state? Who hurt her? Before jumping to conclusions, he decides to continue with his gentle approach. He shifts slightly, taking her chin between his fingers to lift her head away from his chest, her gaze instinctively meeting his. He's met with the most heartbreaking look of vulnerability she's ever displayed. He doesn't like it one bit. "What's troubling you, my darling?" He questions her again, his thumb tenderly caressing the soft, milky skin of her face. Charlie sniffles and briefly shifts her gaze downwards as she struggles to answer in a way that makes sense. I don't know." She sighs shakily. She knows it's a pathetic response, but she doesn't know how to explain the hellstorm wreaking havoc in her mind. Alistair stays quiet, only giving her a look that urges her to go on. And when she looks at him again, she does, however, reluctantly. "Oh, Al, I don't know why, but I have a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach, and no matter what I do, it won't leave me alone." Charlie lets out a small hiccup of a breath, leaning her head forward slightly, longing to lay on his chest again. "I keep having these horrible dreams. They play out differently, but they all end up the same way. Something bad happens, or someone attacks us, and one way or another, you get taken away from me. I don't know what happens to you after. I always wake up before I can find out, but I'm afraid that it means you were..." She pauses, not wanting to actually finish the thought aloud. She knows she doesn't need to anyway. Alistair can easily fill in the blank. His signature smile, sealed by his lips at the moment, tightens at the corners. Charlie doesn't see it, but his blinking eyes go wide for just a moment. It may be just a coincidence. It had to be. But what are the odds that they were both struggling with bad dreams about losing the other to some unknown force of darkness? Alistair doesn't let it affect him like Charlie clearly has, because to him it shouldn't have meant anything. But to know that his princess was facing the exact same troubling phenomenon was the cause of alarm. He doesn't tell her of this. No, he refuses to worry her any more than she already has been. It's his job to ease her worries, not increase them. It's a burden he'll bear for them both. What's one more anyway? He pulls her close to him as she snuggles into his arms. "Oh, Charlie, you must not fret over something like night terrors." He assures her in a calming voice, trailing his hand up and down the length of her back. "They're just dreams, after all. They cannot hurt us." "That's the thing. What if they're not just dreams?" Charlie rebuttals, her body growing slightly tense at this thought she only just now realizes she has. What if it's a warning? Alistair doesn't even want to entertain the idea. He doesn't want to imagine that that's the reason behind their shared unconscious terrors. No, he won't give in to the fear. It'll only consume them, and then they will be doomed to face it. "You shouldn't think like that, dear," he says, leaning his head down, resting his chin on top of her head. "It will do you no good. You mustn't let your fear control you." Charlie closes her eyes, her voice reverting back to its pitiful hushed tone. "I can't stop it." There's a brief moment of stillness between them. Neither dares to move from the warmth of the other's touch. The air grows quiet, with only the cackling flames of the fireplace providing any source of sound. That is, until Alistair slowly lifts his head and pulls her back to face her again. The look in his eyes takes her aback. His grin is as wide as always, but there's a subtle glimmer of sadness in his gaze that she's never quite seen before. She's not sure if she should feel touched that he's grown so comfortable to express such vulnerability in front of her, or horrified of the meaning behind it. "Then tell me what I can do to make it go away." He raises his finger up to brush her bangs away from her forehead, before resting his hand against the side of her face, cupping her face in his palm. "Whatever it is, it will be done. Just name it." Charlie frowns softly, staring at him quietly for the longest minute. She's not sure there's anything he can do to make this all disappear. Alistair may be a powerful overlord, wielding immense power that has left even her impressed, but sadly, He can't just snap his fingers and rid her of her fears like he wishes. Miracles like that weren't possible down here in hell. There's only one thing he can do, though. As simple as it may be, it's what she needs him to do. Charlie leans her face into his palm, bringing her own hand up to hold his wrist as she looks deep into his eyes. Just promise me that no matter what happens, if anything happens, that nothing will tear us apart from each other, she says, her voice trembling more and more with each word. Whether these are just stupid dreams or not, I cannot lose you, Alistair. So please, promise me now. Alistair gives her an incredulous look, raising his brow a little, just before he leans in, inching his face closer to hers. Charlie, my princess, he speaks firmly, his voice lacking any static or filter that it normally does. I swear on my damned life, I will never let anything take you away from me. Not heaven, not hell. Nothing is ever going to keep us apart. Do you understand? She nods slowly, as she blinks the tears she's been fighting back, threatening to burst like a broken dam. Alistair kisses her, the tender touch of his lips bringing her a warm sense of comfort. He then pulls her back into his reassuring embrace, and at last the woman crumbles down. She cries into his shoulder, clinging onto him like she may lose him for good if she ever thinks of letting go. He doesn't say anything, knowing he said all that he can to bring her solace, and all he can do now is simply be here with her. But they both know his words held nothing but truth to them. Charlie's been the one good thing to ever happen to him in a long, long time. He would sooner die again than ever let something rip that away from his grasp. He will hold on to her and use everything in his power to fight for her, and he will do it all with a smile on his face. It's all right, my love, is his immediate thought when he hears that dreadful sound of her sobbing. He hugs her as close as he possibly can, letting his eyes fall shut as his face presses onto the mess of hair on her head. The shadow that resembles his shape looms over the pair, hovering its claws protectively over the woman in Alistair's arms. Anyone who tries to take you from me will be faced with a fate far worse than death. That was really good. That was really good. I don't really have any complaints about it at all. Nice, short, to the point. Again, I'm not too familiar with the series itself. I barely remember the pilot, but I really like this. This was very well written, and it's rather disappointing that it only has one review. Right, so the next story is called Masquerades, or Meant to Stop, and the author of this one is Chi Writers. What if Charlie didn't listen to Angel when he told her to leave? What if she saw deep into his eyes and knew that he actually wanted to help, but instead would rather protect her from Val? Charlie may be a sweet, angelic demon, but remember that you never mess with her loved ones, ever. An AU of episode 4 of Hazbin Hotel wanted to give a spin on it. So this story is rated Fiction K. It's in English. It's friendship drama. The characters are Angel Dust, Charlie, and Valentino. Now this is longer. The word count is over 3,000 words, 8 reviews, 63 faves, 37 follows, and this was published back in February 9th of this year, which is the year 2024. Alright, pretty much it's the summary again, and a little bit more. So an AU of episode 4 Hazbin Hotel wanted to give a spin to it, wanted to create more of a habit of Charlie and Angel fics, more of a brother-sister type thing. Also, I got inspired by an amazing fic called Unlikely Companions by Ben Cargammer on AO3, and it made some minor corrections. Right. Okay, I'm going to stop you right now. You say this story is rated Fiction K, and within the first sentence I see the word asses. Change the rating to T. Let's continue to read. Alright, get your asses back on the set, and we are taking this from the top, Val ordered everyone, as he yanked a bruised Angel Dust back to his position on the bed. What makes you think you can treat him like that? Charlie, engulfed in demonic fury, strode over to Val, her hair flowing upwards like flames, her horns erupt from her head, her eyes as red and deadly as the fires of hell. She was not going to mix words, that's for sure. She was going to Charlie! She was cut off by an angry Angel Dust in her way. Just stop, he said with added heat. Angel, what are you talking about? she asked, confused and a bit sad. Charlie, leave! Gesturing a finger towards the door. Not leaving room for argument, he shoves the princess towards the door in a forceful manner. I didn't want you to come here. I already asked you to leave and you didn't listen. You made things worse, Angel said, pushing towards the door frame. I just wanted to help you, feeling a tinge of guilt and blame. I'm missing a period. Well, you ain't. You actually want to help me? Get the fuck out of here. And now you can change the rating to M. You need to make sure you're putting the appropriate ratings on these stories. If the story has swears in it, rated T. If it has the F word, rated M. Well, maybe it can still be T if it's only one F word. I mean, that's how it is with PG-13 movies. They're allowed one F word. So if the F word shows up again, then yes, it should be rated M and not rated K+. Right now, and let me finish my work. As he said that, shut the door in her face, but before it closed, Charlie could see a pang of guilt flash across Angel's face, even if it was for a second. She just stood there, tears threatening to betray her as they would fall across her plump cheeks and down to the floor. Charlie had just witnessed a sight that could only cause a person with a kind heart blood to boil with anger, but she wondered what she could do now. Ever since she met Angel Dust on the streets of hell, she knew in her heart that he was a good person who lacked the helping hand to lift him from the pits of despair and shame that he was so accustomed to. Even when their first meeting did not start off with happiness and grace, she knew from the glimpse, even if it was a little, that he wanted to be free, to be happy, to be redeemed, and that was the first in all of it, wanting it, even if it was just a small flickering flame. As long as it was not snuffed out, then there was always hope. Living with Angel Dust was like having an annoying little brother. Not like she would know anything about that, but she loved him like any other family member, even if her family was flaky at times. She at times would be annoyed at his turf wars, his sexual innuendos, and the way he makes snide comments about her or the other hotel residents. Charlie loved Angel no matter what, because she knew that he was just shielding his heart from the pains and sorrows of hell. In doing that, he closed off any form of real love that he came across, not wanting to be hurt all over again. It was a challenge at first when they lived together, but Angel, despite being a porn star, understood people's feelings and boundaries. He loved the hotel with all of his heart, not just for the free food and no rent. Okay, that was a given. But he was slowly changing for the better, and that was something that Charlie could not let be destroyed, no matter if it was another overlord. Pushing back the tears, she was not going to cry home, but burn this shit to the ground. As Val was about to start his latest video with his favorite toy, they were interrupted by the doors of the studio slamming open and crimson red eyes beaming from the shadows, peeking into the room as if a beast was at the door. As the devilish being strode over to the set, leaving red and white torched footprints behind, everyone was either shocked, confused, or feeling a rising sense of fear at what they were witnessing. Angel tore his eyes off Val to see something that made him sweat bullets. Charlie stood in the center of the porn studio, standing at 10 feet tall, with a few inches above Val himself. Her horns were bared out in a radiant tone, her hair wildly flailing in the air. She called upon her inherited angelic wings from her father, beaming a golden ray of hope and wonder. As she made her way over to a bored-looking Val, she was stopped again by a familiar voice. Charlie, what the fuck are you doing here? There's a second F word, so this should be rated M. I told you to go home. You will only make... He was interrupted by a hand raised in the air that motioned him to silence. Angel didn't know why he was stopped. Could it be the sudden confidence that the princess gave off right now, or was it the anger that could be seen in her eyes, ready to spill out and decimate all that was in her way? Angel. Her voice was a mixture of demonic and angelic tones, the latter doing nothing to calm the fear in the spider's eyes. Sensing this, the princess took hold of his hands in a warm embrace that did wonders to stifle his fear. Their moment was cut short by a now angry overlord moth. Angie Cakes. That name brought a familiar sense of fear back to the spider demon. I thought I told you to get rid of your little friend here. Are you defying me? He asked with a mock of tone of sadness, but Angel knew that there was an underlying sense of anger boiling up to the surface. Angel quickly took his hand from the demon princess and walked over to calm his pimp down, much to her annoyance. Before he could say anything else, Val's hand was raised and threatened to bruise the already tender face of the spider. He closed his eyes, bracing for the burning sting of the attack, but when the pain was not felt, he opened his two big eyes to see what happened. He was shocked to see that Val's hand was caught by a familiar grip of the princess. His face showed levels of shock and wrath, something Angel was all too familiar with. She swatted his arm away, jerking him to hit the director's chair behind him with a thud. Everyone gave uncontrolled gasps at the scene. Val quickly recovered, pretending that it never happened. Well, Angie Cakes, it seems you have this little princess by your side. Will it do you all the well when tomorrow is another day? The devilish smirk plastered across his face, red drool dripping down as he bared his teeth at them. If Angel Dust was not scared before, he was petrified with absolute terror at the prospects what Val will do to him. And not just him, but all the people he has come to love and care for, who also loved him. As tears pricked down from his eyes and he shook with terror, two comforting hands enveloped him from behind and held him with a certain type of warmth that he hadn't felt since he hugged his mother and sister Molly in his human life. The hug did wonders to calm him down. Even if it was just for a short span, he was happily reveled in it. Suddenly he was brought face to face with the princess, in her still demonic form. He peered into her eyes once again. Now an angelic light shone on her right side. He saw something that he was all too afraid to have, to nurture, to completely go towards. Hope. Not wasting time, she summons the contract from Val's grasp. Much to the shock and fear, too late to do anything about it. She then activates a protective barrier to keep unwanted intruders out, while Val was frantically pounding the shield, unleashing what magic power he had on it, but it was no use in Charlie's hybrid demonic angelic form. A very powerful tool she did not use lightly. What's happening, Charlie? Angel nervously shook in her grasp, justifiably scared at the outcome. Charlie squeezed his shoulder with her free hand while the other was gripping hold of the reluctant contract. She took a moment to stare into the spider's eyes and said, "Do you trust me?" with utmost conviction and plea. Angel Dust was not one to give his life or trust to just anyone off the street, but he knew the person standing right here was no ordinary John he picked up from the club. She was his friend. He gave a nod. "Yes, Charlie. That was what the princess needed to do. That was the princess needed to do what she had to do." I think you're missing a word there. Her wings spread wide as she clenches the contract with one hand and brings the other up to his neck. With a snap, the dark red mist that has haunted him for decades solidifies into a solid collar, chains, and shackles. They cling closely to the spider, completely entangling his body and almost seem to slither through his fur. Everywhere the chains touched, Angel could swear he could feel the phantom touches from the roach, as if he was wearing the barrier to grab onto his possession. Seizing the chain connected to one of his bound wrists, Charlie begins to feel among the manifested magic. It's almost as if it shies away from her touch, like it knows what is about to happen. After finding the exact spot where Angel's essence ceases and Valentino's begins, she takes the link in her hand and seems to pinch it, an otherworldly material bending and buckling as her hand glows white hot. The demonic magic that makes up the chain thrashes and shrieks like metal across metal. Angel cries out, making all the people on set look at him. Everyone was in stunned silence as things played out, even more so when they saw the same overlord that caused him pain thrashing on the floor with great agony. Anthony cries out as Charlie Morningstar pinches yet another link in the contract and watches the link carefully. If she is even slightly off the mark, it could have unforeseen consequences. Upon the second chain connected to Angel's other wrist being severed, the ones around his legs tighten. The collar around his throat follows suit as the possessive magic does everything in its power to keep the contract intact. The contract in her other hand glows bright red, as if it shares the same rage as the Overlord. With every severed link, Angel feels his memories resurface. Painful memories. Memories of being tricked into believing he loved that possessive bastard. Memories of being forced to obey his every whim. all the times he was forced to bed a creepy, gross, or violent client. Every time after a show, he was taken to his own dressing room and forced to sleep with the slimy moth that held his soul in his vice grip. Every smack, every backhand, every kick, every bruise, cut, and broken bone over the last 80 years seemed to reignite inside of him as he let out more strangled, pain-filled screams. "Fuck you, Valentino," she thought to herself, actually seeing all the memories of her friend's mind. Grabbing the second link closest to the contract, Charlie began to pinch off the connection like nothing had changed between either chain. Her strength was beyond that an overlord could begin to muster, even while having only minimal training from her father. Her father had also warned her about this. It was a defense mechanism, that some overlords had to confuse the one severing the contract, the intermingles of their essence with the victim, and makes it impossible to tell which is which. Yet, that wasn't all that was happening. She could feel the essence of a third and fourth party in the links of the contract. If the three V's had contract between themselves that was mutually beneficial and had them sharing terms and power, with this last link was the cumulative effort to keep Angel on a leash. The closer she was to the contract, the stronger it was. She saw closely the expression on her friend's face, and it almost deterred her conviction. The pain, the surface agony that he had to endure all this time was breaking her heart. She couldn't stop now. No, she will not let some overlord take what is hers. When the last link is severed, an explosion of pink light binds everyone as Angel's head is thrown back. If it wasn't for the last-minute grip of her embrace, they would have been thrown out of the barrier forcibly. The light show dies down as well as the barrier, Charlie letting go, reverting back to her normal state before stumbling back onto her feet. A hand was there to support both of them. She looked up to see Angel just giving off a tired smile to his friend. They took the opportunity to leave the studio and head somewhere before Val and the other V's came around. Groggy eyes peered open, tired as they were. They took the environment she was in. Sitting upright, what appears to be mangled up bed of some sort. She takes a closer look to see she was probably in an apartment. Seems to be in the rundown part of Pride. She takes the sight and can't help but feel as though she has been there before. "Good morning, Toots." She whipped her head to catch the all too familiar voice. On the windowsill, she saw a familiar spider demon in his everyday drag clothes, a skirt, pink jacket, and high-thigh boots and a bow tie. He turned around with a neutral expression as he walked over to where the sleeping princess lay. "Angel Dust, what happened? Where are we?" Charlie asked frantically. Angel just eyed her with folded arms. "Quite the show you did there, princess. That show got you all tired, though, and so I figured you needed some immediate rest. So I brought you back to my old Ritz for some R&R, and to get away from the V's for some time." He spoke in a calm voice that made Charlie a little nervous. "Honestly, what were you fucking thinking pulling that shit?" Losing his calm demeanor and gave her an earful. Charlie only sighed at that. "Angel, I will not apologize for what I did today. I could not just stand there and allow one of my family members to be treated like that." Not fault in her speech. Angel Dust was quickly taken aback by this, but before he could respond, she continued. "Angel, I remember the first time I met you. It was around this area of hell, and I was looking for patrons for the hotel, and I happened to find you. You were so reluctant at first, even Vaggie wouldn't allow it. But I didn't let up. I saw a soul wishing to be better, if given a second chance, and took that chance on you, Angel. I regret nothing," she said with a smile of conviction. Angel could not stand it. His lips were quivering, and he was at the verge of showing his fucking tears. "I never asked you to fucking save me. I never asked you to come back and deal with Val, but now I will have to see him again next time, and..." He was cut off. "Angel, I broke your contract with Val. You're free." "What?" After hearing two words that he craved for so long, he chose to say that in response. "I said that I successfully destroyed the contract that bound you and Val. You are now free from his control." "How?" he said in disbelief. "I was taught by my father to break contracts. It's not all that simple, as it needs a strong magical ability, but it severely drains me of strength and stamina until I can rest and recover. It was a risk, but I'd happily do it again for you," she said with a warm smile. That was enough of his shields. Why? Why would you... Do you give a damn about me? You could have gotten seriously hurt. And for what the fuck up like me? He was holding his tear-stained face in his hands. He couldn't bring himself to look at her. Two arms embraced him once again, warm as before, with no less care and love. It muffled the sobs until they were soft and dying down. "Because I love you, Angel. You are not just my friend, but now my family. And I did promise to help you on the road of redemption, as Princess of Hell, I intend to keep that promise." He looked up, sniffing. "Even with a broken loser like me, you still care just as much." Looking at her face to find any traces of a lie, but he couldn't find any. Didn't God say, says Sebert should say, that he came to the earth for the weak and the broken? I don't care if you are broken, Angel. I care that you want to change, and I want to help you, no matter what or how long it takes. She pulled him into another one of her comforting hugs, and this time Angel took the opportunity to hug back with some much returned love and happiness. "Thank you, Princess." He sighed in her shoulder. "You are always welcome, Angel." "Anthony." "What?" Pulling him up to see him. "Please, if it's just us, call me Anthony. Only my family does," he said so shyly. She looked at him with a heartfelt smile and hugged him again. "You got it, Anthony." Finally, he was free. Free. And though he doesn't fully believe in redemption, he believes in the new free sister who never gave up on him and was good enough to try. And that was good enough to try. Author's note. Okay, I wrote this because I hate Val and wish to burn him alive. I also had a brain blast on the idea, and I wanted to get on the fanfic train. Hope you enjoy, and do let me know what you think. Thank you. Well, aside from a few typos and it being in the wrong rating, this was a pretty good story. I wish I probably should have watched some of Hazbin Hotel before reading this, but I do think that they are in character. I could be wrong. For those who do watch the series, let me know if you thought the characters were in character for either of these stories. I would appreciate it. Well, if you like today's stories, please be sure to leave a like and be sure to comment, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I'd greatly appreciate it. I'll see you on the next episode. Until then, cheerio.